Hello my lovelies, I hope you've had a fabulous week. Today is very exciting because finally we have the 40s bondage dress, and not only that, but it's this channel, Tara Deighton Atelier's first birthday. When I started, I thought of it as a bit of an experiment because I just really wanted to share my love of sewing, dressmaking, vintage and DIY style with people, and I thought it would be really good at the end of a year if I have 100 subscribers, and that seemed like an immense amount to me, but actually I've got 370 something subscribers, so a huge thank you and mwah, kisses to all of you who do take the time to watch the videos and support me. I really want to grow this channel, so having your support means more than you could ever possibly know. Before we get into 40s bondage dress shenanigans, I have this little make to show you. So it's my totes ruffled shopping bag, and what I've done is I've done a full tutorial for this over on my journal on my website, which I'll link. Here is the 40s bondage dress, and in this video I'm going to show you how I've made it, the sewing process, but the actual pattern drafting process will be a piece in my journal on the coming Monday. I don't know what that date is, maybe Monday the 11th or 12th or something like that. So that will be there, and I'm going to be doing a lot more tutorials and accompanying pieces to videos over on that journal. So enough of a waffle, let's have a look at how I've sewn this. As with all my sewing projects, I've done a page in my sketchbook with the original picture that I found on Pinterest and my own technical drawing, which I've hand done. I found this lovely viscose challis fabric from Rainbow Fabrics Kilburn, which I thought had a very 1940s looking print. I think when I cut the pattern, I'm not going to do all these panels in the skirt. I'm just going to use a centre seam, and I can't see the back of the dress, so I'm going to just make that up and try and make this as simple a make as possible. I called it the 40s bondage dress. It's not really a bondage dress, but you know, this fabric's lovely and lightweight, but it sews very much like silk, so all those hours spent sewing wedding dresses will come in very useful. But I'm very excited about this one. I've already drafted my pattern, and I'm not going to show you that process in this video, but there is going to be an accompanying journal piece over on my website on Monday, so I will link my journal below should you want to see how I pattern cut this particular dress. I think cutting out must be one of my most favourite parts of the process. So exciting and such a long way to go. Here's everything cut out. I tend to keep the fabric pieces with the corresponding pattern pieces because I tend to get confused if I don't. It just makes life easy. I had to really think about how I was finishing edges and how this dress was going to be constructed, because obviously I have no instructions, and I'd also forgotten to pattern cut some sleeves, so I quickly had to do that. And I'm just working out in my head really the order of construction. So it's the bodice first, really, gathering and actually putting a facing on this, and then making the back panels separately. So that's going to be the first thing that I do, and I'll show you once I've done that. So here's the bodice front on Mildred, all sewn. The waistband is sewn, or waist panel really, rather than a waistband, and I've sewn the facing on and done the gathering and so on. So the next thing is going to be to neaten the edge of that facing, turn it through, press it and sew it in place, which I'll probably do by hand, I think. And then the strap's going to come from that point, and the back shoulder seam is going to incorporate both of those pieces. I hope that makes sense. I've also sewn the back panels as well, so the back bodice to the skirt, and there isn't a waistband or waist panel on the back. I just wanted the back to be really, really simple, but I didn't film this bit. For reasons unbeknownst to me, I'm sewing an invisible zip into the back panels of this dress before I sew the back to the front. I'm using my invisible zip foot, and here I am super speedily sewing the invisible zip in and making it look incredibly easy. I'm not 100% happy with this. Where the seam and the zip meet, there's a little bit of a tuck, and also the seams don't quite meet up, but I'm not going to redo it. I give the seam a bit of a press so that the seam lays flat, and then a press on the right side, and hopefully that will sort out the tuck, which you can see it more or less has. I would prefer this to be perfect, and I wish I'd just done my normal centre lapped zipper, but never mind. So now I'm sewing the facing in place. I've pressed the lower edge of the facing, and I've done little snips very carefully at these points so that I can turn the facing through. I'm going to edge stitch just so that the seam or the facing rolls nicely, and then just pin it in place. And I think I'm going to stitch this by hand. A solid line of machine stitching might look a little bit heavy on this centre front. So I'm super speedy sewing the facing down here. I've put a pin into the point of the waistband, and I'm going to line up that centre seam with that point. I'm going to have to undo a little bit of that seam just so that I can sew up into that point and then pivot and sew away from that point. And here it is. I've done it, and it's okay. You know, it's not 100% perfect, but I'm happy enough with it. And then I was going to put a facing onto this waist panel, but actually I think I'm just going to overlock. Here's the 40s bondage dress so far. The front is all sewn together. The pivot point is a little bit bumpy, but maybe once pressed that will be sorted out, and I've overlocked inside. I've pinned it onto Mildred here, and also pinned on the back, just as I'm trying to work out the logistics of these centre front straps and whether I've got it right in my head. Sometimes you think you've got something right, and then you go to do it and it doesn't work. So the invisible zip is looking quite invisible, which is always handy. And I'm really pleased with this so far. I think it's looking quite fab. And here are the straps just pinned on for the time being. I think it's looking very effective. I'm going to just top stitch those there, and that can be covered with a bow, and then this will sit there, and the back seam or the shoulder seam of the back will incorporate that. And I've pressed them, and I've actually stitched them in so you can see, and I'm going to bias bind that edge of the back to neaten it. I spend much of my sewing time trying to navigate this. A Loki on my lap, purring, wanting cuddles. I wouldn't have it any other way, really. And here we are, very nearly done. The sleeves are in, the side seams are sewn, everything's overlocked. Still have the bias binding on the back to do. And I've got to work out how I'm finishing these sleeves. In the original drawing and in my technical drawing, it looks like there's ruching with a bow, but I haven't pattern drafted this in that way, so I'm going to have to think about that one. I have added the bow or the tie at the back, as you can see here, and I think that looks really good. I still have to hem the dress as well and sew on all the bows, but I'm really, really pleased with it. I have to say, I haven't actually tried it on yet, so I hope it fits. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video all about my making the 40s bondage dress. Sounds far more kinky than it is, but I love it. Maybe I'm just a little bit naughty, I don't know. But I do hope you've really enjoyed it, and if you've never been here before, hit the subscribe and follow along for lots of vintage inspired DIY style and sewing goodness to come. I am really excited about year 2 and all the exciting projects that I can do, and I'm really so grateful, especially those of you who've accompanied me right from the beginning, and you always comment and are always very kind and generous in your words and your support, and it means the world to me. I will be here next Thursday with something a little bit different but rather special, and if I give you the clue Edwardian wedding dress, maybe that will pique your interest. Have a wonderful week, my lovelies. See you later. Bye.